Cleopatra lived closer in time to the iPhone than to the construction of the Great Pyramid. Read that again. Cleopatra lived closer to the iPhone than to the pyramids. The Great Pyramid of Giza was built around 2560 BC. Cleopatra was born in 69 BC. That means by the time she walked the streets of Alexandria, the pyramids were already over 400 years old. They were as ancient to her as ancient Rome is to us. But from Cleopatra to the first iPhone in 2007, that's only about 2076 years. Time is broken. Your entire understanding of history is compressed into a tiny sliver of what actually happened. And by the end of this video, I'm going to show you a timeline comparison so disturbing that it will permanently rewire how you see human civilization. But the most shocking part, it's not about Cleopatra at all. It's about something hiding in the math that historians almost never talk about. What you're about to discover are 10 facts about time that will make you realize everything you thought you knew about history is an illusion. Let's begin. Let's put this in perspective. The Great Pyramid was completed around 2560 BC. When Cleopatra ruled Egypt in 30 BC, the pyramids were already 530 years old. 2530 years old. To understand what that means, imagine standing in front of the pyramids today. They feel ancient, right? Impossibly old. Now realize that Cleopatra, the last pharaoh of Egypt, felt the exact same way. To her, the pyramids were relics of a forgotten age. She lived closer to us than to the builders of those monuments. Time is the longest distance between two places. Here's what makes this even stranger. The pyramids were built with such precision that we still can't fully replicate their construction today. The base is level to within 1 centimeters across 13 acres. They aligned it to true north with an accuracy of 3/60th of a degree. And this was done 500 years ago, before the wheel was common in Egypt, before iron tools existed. No wheels, no iron. The people who built them were closer to the Stone Age than to Cleopatra. And that's where your brain starts to break, because what happened in between? Here's where it gets truly disturbing. Between the construction of the pyramids and the birth of Cleopatra, there is a gap of roughly 500 years. 500 years. Let that sink in. In that span, entire civilizations rose and fell that most people have never even heard of. The Akkadian Empire, the Hittites, the Mitanni Kingdom, the Sea Peoples who nearly destroyed Mediterranean civilization around 1200 BC. Entire worlds were born and buried in that gap. The Bronze Age collapse alone wiped out nearly every major civilization in the Eastern Mediterranean. It was arguably the worst disaster in human history before the Black Plague, and it happened roughly in the middle of that gap between the pyramids and Cleopatra. Most people think of ancient Egypt as one thing, one era, one continuous story, but it wasn't. Not one era. Ancient Egypt lasted for over 3,000 years. That's longer than the entire span from the Roman Empire to right now. If that just blew your mind, hit like and subscribe, because the next facts are even crazier. Seriously, you're not ready for what comes next, because the timeline gets even more warped when you zoom out further. Now forget everything I just said about Cleopatra, because this comparison makes that one look boring. Woolly mammoths were still alive when the pyramids were being built. Mammoths and pyramids existed at the same time. A small population of woolly mammoths survived on Rangel Island in the Arctic Ocean until approximately 1700 BC. The Great Pyramid was completed around 2560 BC. That means for roughly 800 years, there were woolly mammoths walking the earth while the pyramids already stood in the desert. Your brain wants to reject this because we've been trained to think of mammoths as creatures from the Ice Age, from another world entirely. But they weren't. They overlapped with one of humanity's greatest architectural achievements. The only reason for time is so that everything doesn't happen at once. And speaking of things that shouldn't overlap, here's another one. Oxford University was founded before the Aztec Empire existed. Oxford was already teaching students before the Aztecs built Tenochtitlan. The university began teaching in 1096 AD. The Aztec civilization started around 1300 AD. Oxford before Aztecs. Time isn't a straight line. It's a tangled mess. And the next comparison is the one that truly breaks the pattern. If you thought that was disturbing, you're not ready for this. The Stegosaurus lived closer in time to humans than to the Tyrannosaurus rex, closer to US. The Stegosaurus roamed the Earth around 155 million years ago during the late Jurassic period. The T-Rex didn't appear until about 68 million years ago during the late Cretaceous. That's a gap of roughly 87 million years between them. 87 million years separated these two dinosaurs. Meanwhile, the T-Rex went extinct only 66 million years ago, which means the gap between the Stegosaurus and the T-Rex is 21 million years larger than the gap between the T-Rex and you watching this video right now. Stegosaurus never met T-Rex. Every movie that shows them together is lying to you. They never coexisted. They were separated by more time than separates us from the dinosaurs entirely. As the paleontologist Stephen Jay Gould once noted, deep time is so alien that we can really only comprehend it as metaphor. And he was right. Our brains simply were not built to process these numbers. But what happens when you apply this same broken sense of time to human history? That's where it gets truly insane. Stop and think about this for a second. The Roman Empire fell in 476 AD. The moon landing happened in 1969. That's a gap of about 500 years. Now consider what happened in those 500 years. 1. Humanity went from horse-drawn carts to rockets. 2. We went from candles to nuclear power. 3. We went from scrolls to the internet. 4. We went from swords to atomic bombs. All of that in 500 years. But remember, the gap between the pyramids and Cleopatra was 500 years. A full 1,000 years longer. And in that time, no industrial revolution, no electricity, no printing press. Almost nothing changed for 500 years. The rate of progress was so slow that a person from 2500 BC could have been dropped into 500 BC and still recognize the world around them. Try doing that today. Drop someone from the year 1500 into 2025, and they would think they had entered a world of gods and magic. The acceleration of progress is the defining story of humanity. Slow, then explosive. And this acceleration, it explains something deeply unsettling about what comes next on this timeline. Here's where the story takes a dark turn. The reason time feels so broken is because human progress follows an exponential curve, not a linear one. Progress is not a straight line. It is a rocket that keeps accelerating. For the first 200,000 years of human existence, we lived as hunter-gatherers. Almost nothing changed. Then about 12,000 years ago, we invented agriculture. That was the first inflection point. The next big leap, the Industrial Revolution, took only about 700 years to arrive. Then from the Industrial Revolution to computers, about 200 years. From computers to smartphones, about 30 years. From smartphones to artificial intelligence, about 15 years. Each leap takes a fraction of the time of the one before it. Futurist Ray Kurzweil calls this the law of accelerating returns. We won't experience 100 years of progress in the 21st century. It will be more like 20,000 years. 20,000 years of change, compressed into 1 century. And this is why the Cleopatra comparison is so powerful. It's not just a fun fact. It's a warning about how badly our brains misunderstand the speed at which everything is changing. And the next fact, it makes all of this look like child's play. Now, what I'm about to tell you sounds impossible, but it's been proven by astrophysics. If you compressed the entire 13.8 billion year history of the universe into a single calendar year, all of recorded human history would fit into the last 14 seconds of December 31st. 14 seconds. The Big Bang happens at midnight on January 1st. The Milky Way forms around March. Our sun doesn't appear until September. Dinosaurs show up on Christmas Day and go extinct on December 30th. Humans appear at 11 11:59 p.m. The entire Roman Empire, the Renaissance, both world wars, the moon landing, and the invention of the internet all happen in the final second. All of human civilization exists in the last second of the cosmic year. Carl Sagan created this analogy in his legendary series Cosmos, and his point was devastating. We are a way for the cosmos to know itself. We are not the main character of this story. We are the plot twist at the very end. And yet, in that fraction of a cosmic second, we went from cave paintings to quantum computers, from cave walls to touching the stars, which brings us to perhaps the most terrifying timeline fact of all. Let me pause here because this next part changes the entire picture. Humanity has existed for roughly 300,000 years. We've had nuclear weapons for 80 years out of 300,000. That means for 97% of human existence, we could not destroy ourselves. Now we can, and we've come terrifyingly close. In 1983, a Soviet officer named Stanislav Petrov received an alert that 5 American nuclear missiles were heading toward Russia. Protocol demanded he report it immediately, which would have triggered a full nuclear response. 5 missiles detected. He didn't report it. He had a gut feeling it was a false alarm. He was right. A satellite malfunction had triggered the warning. One man's decision not to follow orders may have saved every human being on Earth. I had a funny feeling in my gut. I didn't want to make a mistake. The Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists maintains the doomsday clock, which currently sits at 90 seconds to midnight, the closest it has ever been. We have gone from building pyramids that last millennia to building weapons that can end everything in minutes. And this connects directly to what I promised you at the beginning of this video, the pattern that historians almost never discuss. Here it is, the thing hiding in the math. Every timeline comparison I've shown you tonight points to the same terrifying conclusion. The window of human civilization is razor thin and accelerating toward a cliff. The pyramids stood for 500 years before Cleopatra. That's stability. Almost nothing changed. But in the 2,000 years since Cleopatra, we went from bronze swords to nuclear warheads, from papyrus scrolls to artificial intelligence, from sailing the Nile to landing on the moon. 1. The pyramids took 2,500 years to become ancient. 2. The Roman Empire collapsed in 400 years. 3. The British Empire lasted 300 years. 4. Modern technology cycles in 5 to 10 years. The cycles are getting shorter. The philosopher Nick Bostrom calls this the vulnerability window, the period where a civilization is advanced enough to destroy itself, but not yet wise enough to prevent it. The real risk is not that machines become smarter than us, but that we remain as foolish as we've always been. Smarter tools, same brain. We have the technology of gods and the psychology of apes. That's the pattern. That's what the Cleopatra comparison is really about. We are accelerating faster than our wisdom can keep up. Comment which fact from tonight blew your mind the most. I bet most of you will say either the mammoths or the nuclear close call. Share this with someone who needs their timeline recalibrated. And the final piece of this puzzle is the one that will stay with you. So where does that leave you? The universe is 13.8 billion years old. The pyramids have stood for 500 years. Cleopatra lived 2,000 years ago. And you get about 80 years. 80 years. On the cosmic calendar, your entire life is less than a blink, less than a heartbeat. And yet, in your 80 years, you will witness more change than Cleopatra saw in her entire civilization's history. You are living through the fastest transformation in human history. The pyramids were built to last forever. They were humanity's way of saying we were here. We mattered. We built something that would outlast us all. And 500 years later, they're still standing. The meaning of life is that it stops. But you don't need to build a pyramid. You just need to understand where you sit on this timeline. You are not at the beginning. You are not at the end. You are the turning point. You are alive during the most pivotal moment in the entire human story. The question is what you do with it. If you made it this far, comment timeline broken to prove you're among the few who truly understand how thin this moment really is. The truth is stranger than anything you could make up. If your brain is as blown as mine right now, hit subscribe, because next time it gets even crazier.